community affairs. As the bridge and voice for Asian Americans to local, state, and federal governments and school boards, we want to promote what our forefathers' beliefs in the principles of individual freedom, rule of law, and limited government. I think the big thing I would tell you is the aim is an effort is to encourage more Asian Americans to step up and be leaders and be the voices of our community. I think we're very fortunate to not only have someone of Dan Forrest's stature, but I'd like to at least get into a little bit about his bio, and then we'll hand it off to Dan to start speaking. Just so you know, Dan is the 34th Lieutenant Governor of the state of North Carolina. He took his oath back in January 2013. He's actually born in Harrisonburg, Virginia, but he grew up in the Charlotte area, and he attended the University of North Carolina in Charlotte. One anecdote before I hand off to Dan here, who just came on. Welcome, Dan.
Thank
you. His mother, they've had a lineage of service to our nation, just so you know. His mother actually served as the U.S. House of Representatives from 1995 to 2013. So we're fortunate to have the Forrest in our family, and we're really glad that he is here today. So, Dan, I know you have a compressed schedule, so we'd like you to go ahead and take it over, and then we'll go into some questions.
Well, thank you, Alan, and thanks for everybody for joining. I don't think any of us imagined about 8 weeks ago that we would be doing all of our meetings via video sitting in our homes, but that's where I've been for a lot of these meetings, and I'm actually pretty proud of folks, how innovative everybody's been, and how patient everybody has been with this. And I think we'll probably get into questions here, Alan, tonight about what's going on in our state related to the coronavirus and the response. I would imagine that's what we're going to be talking about. But I also know that North Carolinians are resilient. We're patriotic. That Bill of Rights that we see in our Constitution is there because of the thoughtful people of the state of North Carolina who wouldn't even have signed on to the Constitution without that Bill of Rights. We wouldn't have had a Constitution without the people of North Carolina. I know we're also an independent people because here in our state, we were the first to actually have a Declaration of Independence, MECDEC, who I know many of you are familiar with. We still support MECDEC in parts of our state every year, and that preceded the U.S. Declaration of Independence. So we're a patriotic people, we're an independent people, but we're also compassionate people. And I'm proud of the people in North Carolina for the way they've stepped up during this time. And so thank you for all of you for what you're doing. And, let's all work together to, as I've said all along, Alan, to do two things at once. We can multitask in America. We can protect the most vulnerable from this virus. We know who they are now. And we can protect people's livelihoods too.
Great. Dan, before I get into questions, I'd actually like you to, because today's fortuitous, because today you sent a special letter via email to the governor, Governor Cooper, about your concern over the current state of the state of North Carolina, but also his not having convened the Council of States, and the concern not only in the unemployment ranks, but people have sheltered in place trying to minimize social distance and wear masks where appropriate and things of that nature. But your letter was very hard hitting, and I'd like to see if you'd like to comment a few things about it, because it feeds right into several of the questions we've got for you.
Well, I just right as I jumped on with you, I just got off of a Zoom interview with WRAL about this very thing. But for those of you who were working today and didn't have time to pay attention to such things, we sent a letter from the Council of State, the Republican Council of State members, to the governor just saying, hey, we need to convene a meeting, Governor. We haven't had one. We've never had a Council of State meeting where we've been able to talk about this, where we've been able to express our opinions and ask questions, for goodness sake. These are constitutionally elected officers of the state of North Carolina, elected by the same people that elected the governor, serving the same state that he serves. Obviously, he's the governor, and he has different authority there. But at the same time, as I like to say, that if you're in charge of a company in the middle of some tragedy, and you need to get out of that situation, you bring as many bright minds around you of differing opinions as you can as fast as possible so that you can provide solutions. It seems that our governor's been sitting in an echo chamber for a couple months, because he certainly hasn't reached out and asked anybody their opinions. He basically says, if you ask a question, that's called partisan politics. That was his response to me today when we sent that letter was, there's no place for partisan politics in a pandemic. And I agree completely. So Governor Cooper, get out of your echo chamber and invite some other people with some differing opinions to the table, and we might be able to get our economy going faster and protect people's lives as well. So that's really what that was about. It's pretty simple. There's nothing partisan about it. It's just a group of Republicans, 6 of us, that make up the majority of the Council of State, who say, just let us come together and figure out what your strategy is, because we still don't know. We really don't know what your timetable is. We really don't know the science you're basing things off of, and we deserve to have that conversation.
Well, I applaud you guys for sending the letter. Last week we did a town hall with State Secretary Dale Folwell, and he brought up the fact that we've got all these key, talented, intelligent elected officials, like you brought up, in the Council of State, and they had not convened yet. And how can you make decisions whether or not how North Carolina should move back to whatever normal is, with safety concerns and meeting the testing requirements based on the president's guidelines for the whole country? But we're, just like in your letter you brought up, we're a specific region. We're in the Southeast region. We're handling things a lot better. If you look at the comorbidity rate versus what's going on in New York, we're pale in comparison. We're even better than the state of Virginia. So those kinds of numbers, when you look at it, tell yourself, how are we going to do a better job in trying to bring back North Carolina? We're vibrant, 10th largest state in the union, but at the same time, what are we doing to try and get our livelihoods back, but at the same time save lives?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that challenges a lot of people out there is they say the goalposts keep moving. What is your ultimate goal? That's a good question for the governor. We started all this with, we had to flatten the curve so that we didn't overrun our hospitals, so that we didn't overrun our ICU bed capacity, so that we didn't overrun our ventilator capacity. None of that has ever happened in North Carolina. In fact, we have hospitals that have been basically shutting down because people weren't able to go get their normal regular procedures and surgeries and those kinds of things. So we have hospitals that have laid off hundreds of workers. Hospitals are losing billions of dollars. The curve has been flat in North Carolina from the beginning. And so for what is basically the 8th largest state in the country now, Alan, we are way down the line of states that have been hardest hit by this virus. And I want to remind everybody that the virus count, as long as there's no pure, complete vaccine, the virus count will continue to go up. It may go up forever. HIV is the same way, right? If you sat there and had a chart for HIV, all you do is see it go up all the time, a new case, and we'll continue to have new cases. Even if we open up the economy, you may see a spike in cases. The hope is you see a spike in herd immunity and more people get this that are asymptomatic. And then the real issue is, how do you protect the vulnerable? Because we know who the vulnerable are, Alan. We may not have known that at the beginning fully, but we know it now. We have data from around the world. We know who gets this virus, who gets the bad symptoms of this virus, who gets hospitalized with this virus, and who dies from this virus. We know that pretty clearly now. And we can protect those folks. Here in North Carolina, most of our deaths have come from nursing homes. In Florida, that's not the case. Florida locked down their nursing homes before they locked down their state. They started screening every person through temperature screenings. Every person that went in and out of that facility, they screened them every single day. And they tested their patients regularly in the nursing homes. And they didn't allow patients to be transferred from hospitals back to nursing homes then. We didn't do that in North Carolina, and we see the effects of that now.
Yeah. Several of the questions kind of feed right off of what you had already put in your letter. So I'm not going to, we have numerous questions, so I'd like to move on. One question, how would you respond to the handling of the unemployment benefits? North Carolina has gotten some terrible marks on how this has been handled. About 3 weeks ago, maybe even 4 weeks ago, we were like 50 out of 50 and couldn't go any lower. We're still backlogged, a lot of complaints, people not able to get to a human at the other end of the line, no one picking up, things of that nature. Well, what would you do differently? I didn't get a chance to bring it up, but I should have told everyone that not only you are lieutenant governor, but you're also running for the governor's seat come November as a Republican nominee. Even as lieutenant governor, how would you try and handle it better? Or can you give us a little background on what's going on with the backlog in unemployment?
Well, just quickly first, Al, let me just say, I'll give you a little bit of background here. When some of the folks on this call may have remembered this, but when the governor came to the Council of State and asked for concurrence in shutting down our restaurants, the Republicans on that call did not, or on that email, was an email, on that email did not concur. The Republicans didn't, and we have the majority. So he did not have authority to do that. And here's why we didn't concur. It actually had very little to do with whether it was right or wrong to shut restaurants down. But he was going to make that decision. He was going to make the announcement. 3 hours later, all of our restaurants in the state of North Carolina were going to be shut down. And I asked the question, I said, are you prepared to lay off 500,000 people tonight? Because that's what you're getting ready to do. You're getting ready to lay off 500,000 people in the state of North Carolina. That's what happened, and the system was overwhelmed. But let me say this, there are good people at Employment Securities that are working really hard, and they're working extra hours to try to handle the rush. Over 1 million, like 1.1 million, I think it was today, unemployed in our state. That's just absolutely unbelievable. We had one of the lowest unemployments in the country, and now we're at 1.1 million. So the system was not ready to handle. They've started outsourcing to call centers in other states and all these kind of things, but they weren't ready for that day. So if you're going to make an aggressive, big, bold move, communication needs to precede that. You need to know what the consequences of that move are going to be. That this is going to happen. Anybody could have predicted that this is what would happen. It wasn't hard. I had no special data when I was suggesting that 500,000 people would be laid off, and they were, and that's what happened. So what would you do differently? I wouldn't make any harsh decisions like that in a matter of hours. I think those things can be phased in. You could work with the restaurants and say, we're going with a carrot approach rather than a stick approach. And we're going to allow you to tell us how you can stay open and protect the health of people at the same time. And if you can't, then we're going to have to make the next move. And here's when it's going to come. And then make sure that your unemployment folks are ready, that the system is ready to handle the rush.
Okay. Well, now that there are a lot of people screaming and clamoring for opening, what kind of safety precautions would you recommend, or do you think we need to be taking as North Carolinians to safely open the state, minimize the loss of lives, or the positives, if you want to call it that, the spread of the virus, but yet at the same time, get back our livelihood?
Well, for one, there is absolutely no proof anywhere from any state or any country that I have seen that you have pundits talking about it, and you have certain experts talking about it, but no empirical data that says that a lockdown actually keeps you from having more deaths. Flattening a curve may stretch the deaths out over a longer period of time if certain people are going to end up getting that virus. So what you have to do is you have to protect the vulnerable population. That's what you have to do. If you find that more than 50% of our deaths in North Carolina are in nursing homes, then by golly, do everything in your power to protect the people in those nursing homes. That's what you need to do. And more communication and not less is the way to do that. At the same time, there's great tragedy out there on the other side too, Alan, and that there are deaths from suicide, there's deaths from addiction, there are deaths from anxiety and depression and all kinds of things on the side of people that have lost their livelihoods. So it's not just on the virus side, it's also on what people would call the economy side, but I just call it the livelihood side. People's livelihoods are life. And when you lock them down, bad things are going to happen, and bad things are going to happen here in North Carolina, and they already are. And so we have to protect life on both sides, and we have to be empathetic. We have to be empathetic with the people that have the virus or are most likely to get it. And we have to be empathetic with the over 1 million people that have lost their livelihoods and can't feed their kids and pay their rent or pay their car payment. That deserves empathy as well. So we have to do both of those things at the same time while we get this economy going again. And allow the healthy folks to go back to work while we protect those that need to be protected.
That's great, because I know that there are so many small businesses, the beauty parlors, the cleaners, the barbershops. They're all clamoring, please let me have my livelihood back. Let me bring back my employees, because they all want to work. Yeah. When you look at the other possibilities, especially in the medical field, the non-essential procedures, going back to that, dental work, things of that nature. When you look at the rising drug problems that are going to and deaths that will occur over the non-working public, if you want to call it that, but just not being able to go in for chemotherapy. I mean, people are going to die because they're being denied those basic medical needs. In that case, it's not a medical non-essential, but when you shut down and the hardships for the nurses and the non-essential procedures, I heard there's some, I don't know about North Carolina, but my sister, who's a physician down in Sumter, South Carolina, said that there's a lot of orthopedic surgeons that are just retiring because they just don't see a future anytime soon, and that's probably happening a lot here in the state of North Carolina.
Yeah, if you're in excruciating pain and you need a knee replacement, I wouldn't call that a non-essential surgery. If you're in dire need of heart surgery, I certainly wouldn't call that non-essential. And it's been said that a lot of people aren't going to the hospital right now that desperately need to go to the hospital because they fear a virus by going to the hospital. So they're not getting these procedures that they need to have done. So we need to open our hospitals back up. Our hospitals have been safe. Our hospitals have not been overwhelmed. Not a single hospital in North Carolina has been overwhelmed. Not a single ICU unit's been overwhelmed. And so we need to open our hospitals. The hospitals of all people, they know how to protect people from this virus and keep their environment clean and those types of things. And then the rest of the people need to use common sense. If you could wait on your procedure, then wait by all means, And I say the same thing with the economy. You don't have to participate in the economy. If you fit one of those risk categories and you don't want to go out of your house and you want to stay put, you think we should stay locked down, then keep yourself locked down. It's a contract relationship, in the economy. And if you're a barber, you're in a barber shop and you want to open your barber shop, you should be able to do that. And you should be able to have a contract with your customer who wants to come in and get their hair cut. You both know the risks associated with that. And if you want to wear masks, wear masks. And if you want to wear gloves, wear gloves. And allow people to have that free enterprise, free market contract relationship and trust people with their decisions. There's no reason that we shouldn't do that. No reason we can't do that. We trusted Walmart to open and allow hundreds and hundreds of people in their store, but we told Main Street, mom and pop shop that they had to close down, and we didn't trust them because they have 2 people in their store. The kind of decisions that government leaders are making right now are nonsensical. And, they want to act like they're protecting certain people, but they're making these nonsensical decisions and picking winners and losers in the world, and that's just not right.
Yeah, you're echoing what a lot of people in the state of North Carolina. Please let us out. Let's get back to our lives. The same thing in the churches. Freedom of religion. You could almost have a church service in Lowe's or Home Depot parking lot because that's where people are congregating, but yet we can't go into a house of worship. I mean, it's a sad state when I promise you the virus does not distinguish whether you're in the parking lot of Lowe's or parking lot of a church. So we just need to get this fixed.
Basic freedoms are at risk here. I think coming out of this, the most important thing we do is protect our freedoms. This whole issue with, again, we use the extreme cases, but opening an abortion clinic, that's okay. But you close down a church, opening a Walmart, but not allow, you allow hundreds of people in a Walmart, but you don't allow hundreds of people in a church who can, separate their folks very easily, protect their people. This is, again, these nonsensical decisions, but some of these go to the heart of the Constitution and to the very heart of our basic freedoms as Americans. And so these things are important. The left doesn't see it that way, obviously. I mean, to them, a church is just kind of like going to the hardware store to them. To us, it is a basic of life. We are not just flesh and blood, but we're soul and spirit as well. And our souls and spirits need to be revived in church. So we need to get our churches back open.
I agree. Feeding the opening of the state questions, what do you feel, or how do you feel we sit with regard to testing and what our future looks like near term and going through the summer? Because that is of concern. If you watch ABC, NBC, CNN on TV, that's all they talk about is they want more tests. They just don't understand the concept because we're going to try, like you said, the healthy ones who want to get back to work. We want to start looking for hotspots on that. But how does the state sit with testing equipment and being able to get testing when we need it?
Oh, well, that's there's testing going on. There's antibody testing going on. The General Assembly opened up testing, and that's been happening. We've gotten some of our first results in for that. Listen, I'm fine with testing. I don't have any problem with antibody testing to see, what kind of percentage of the population has gotten this thing. It's not going to solve the problem long term. The issue long term is this virus is probably going to be with us for a long time. We don't have any fail-safe vaccines for most viruses. Most of them keep coming back, and some will come back one year and maybe come back the next. And you guys all know that when you have a vaccine for a virus, the doctors who are creating that flu shot for the year are trying to guess at which one it's going to be. And so this is not a new challenge and a new problem. Again, this virus really doesn't discriminate any differently than other viruses do. And so we've got to, again, it's not a difficult equation. Protect those who get it, protect the most vulnerable. We're going to learn a lot of things about this, not just about this virus, but I think about all viruses, and even, the standard flu that passes through every year that can kill up to 60,000 people in our country. We're going to learn how to protect the vulnerable, and that's a good thing. In years past, we just go, well, somebody gets the flu and they die of pneumonia, and nobody calls that the flu. They didn't say, oh, they died of the flu. They died of pneumonia if you were in a nursing home. Now we're going to start to say, hey, listen, we can protect folks in these nursing homes, and they don't have to die of this because we're going to protect them. Now, the other tragic side, Alan, is, and I know we got to wrap up, I'm probably going a little long, but the other tragic side is we have people in nursing homes that are dying alone and lonely. How sad is this? This is extremely sad to me, that people are having to die alone without their families. We need to be able to protect these folks and also allow them to see their families too. Nobody wants to die alone, but that's going on in all of these facilities right now. So again, tragedy on a lot of sides. Have empathy on a lot of sides, but let's start to solve it.
Yeah, I got two short questions, and then I know you have other things you've got to run off to. This is a question from Jackie D. I'm a school teacher. I teach first grade. Unfortunately, remote learning is very hands-off. The learning is not meaningful or genuine. What are your plans or thoughts for reopening K through 12 schools? Furthermore, what can be done with regard to the childcare if we reopen parts of the economy but no schools? How might the community be able to help out if needed?
Well, there's multiple questions in there, but I'll just first, you know, remote digital distance learning can be very effective for some people. It is very effective for a lot of people, in fact, and some people are doing it extremely well, but it's not for everybody. And that's why I'm a fan of school choice, is because I think you should allow the parents to decide what's best for their student. For you as a school teacher, you're obviously teaching because you want to be hands-on, and you want to have people in the classroom, and you want to be able to interact with them in that classroom setting. And that's the setting that 90% of North Carolinians, or maybe, well, more than 90%, by 98% of North Carolinians choose. So I think we need to get our schools back open. There was no data or science that even suggested that we shut down schools. Many countries around the world did not shut their schools down because this virus is not impacting young people. And so you can keep your young people healthy, allow them to gain herd immunity, which helps your entire community out there, because they don't show symptoms generally from this. And if they do, they're mild, generally speaking. There's always outliers to that, but there are older teachers, and there are teachers that are more susceptible to the virus. Protect them, allow them to do that, right? Allow those teachers to be protected. So you can get the schools back open, you can get the universities back open. We can do all of that, and again, protect the vulnerable. So you don't have to lock everybody down to do that. And so I'm a fan of getting the schools open again. That's not going to happen this year in North Carolina. Obviously, we're at the end of the school year, but next school year, which is really just a few months away, we need to get it back opened up.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate that. I'll make this the last question, if you don't mind. And it relates.
It has to be. I gotta run on another Zoom call.
I'm gonna take you full circle back to the November election, which you're very interested in, not only what you're doing now, but for your future. Are you worried that the current COVID situation will harm the November's election in any way? And it's more of, where do you think, or where do you feel it stand with regard to vote by mail effort? The effort by do you think the state board of elections may move that direction, and Governor Cooper sign off on that potential?
Well, don't you find it interesting, Alan, that probably all of us on this call voted for photo voter ID to protect our elections, and now you have the Democrats talking about voting by mail in great mass. How did we go from photo voter ID to voting by mail? I think we should all be very concerned about that. There's so many opportunities for fraud mixed up in all this. And, people say it's too early now to make a decision for next week related to the virus, but there are people out there that want to make a decision for November. It's obviously way too early to do that. The General Assembly has their eyes all over this, no doubt. We have our eyes all over this. Yeah, there's massive opportunity for fraud here, and we don't want to see that happen. So I think we should go about our elections the way we've always gone about our elections.
Okay, well, great. Dan, I appreciate it. And I know you've got to run to another Zoom, so we're kind of going in between. I notice you on so many other channels, so that's great. But I want to thank you personally. Good luck with the Council of States and your efforts working two different parties. It's a lot more difficult working when one's a Republican as a lieutenant governor and a Democrat as the governor. But you're continuing to represent us, and we thank you very much for that. We really do.
Thank you, Alan.
These next couple of months.
Thanks to everybody on the call for listening, and thanks for all you're doing out there. So we're going to get through this, and we're going to have an opportunity to get out and vote in November. Elections have consequences. Remember that. Y'all have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you. Kind of in closing, we kind of wanted to talk with everyone about some upcoming events. We're fortunate to have gotten Dan today. We are looking to reach out to several of the Council of States representatives. We've gotten a commitment for the first week of June, we think, for the Commissioner of Agriculture, Steve Troxler. In addition to that, we're reaching out to the Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. Johnson. And we've also put out a request for the Commissioner of Insurance, Mike Causey, to try and do another one of these town halls hosted by us, the North Carolina Asian American Coalition. In addition to being the president of the Asian American Coalition, I also happen to be the candidate for Congressional District 2, which is Wake County, or 2/3 of it. So we'll have some other events. There are some other things we're trying to do with the North Carolina Asian American Coalition. This is Asian American Heritage Month. On Thursday of this week, we're teamed with Trump Victory. We have Esther Liu, who will be speaking as the Asian Pacific American outreach person on Thursday at 6 p.m. And we'll have her speak about things that have gone on with the Asian American community. In addition to that, I'm a panelist, being Japanese American. I'll be talking about some of the diversity and growth of the Asian American population here in the U.S. A lot of people don't realize it, but just from the year 2010 to 2017, based on Pew Research, the Asian American population in the U.S. grew by 72%. And by the year 2055, the Asian American population will actually be the largest minority population in the United States. So we're trying to gather and bring that block vote together potentially to speak and bring forward our conservative values to the group. So great opportunities. And then in 2 weeks, on the 28th of May, to close out Asian Heritage Month, we're going to have a panel of 8 to 11. We've got 8 committed already, hoping to bring in the other 3 panelists to talk about their family heritage and what it means to be an American and what they want, how they recommend, why they want to run for office. All of these panelists have run or are running this year for office in the great state of North Carolina. So we would encourage you all. Would love to have you sign up and register for this Thursday's event. But this was a great opportunity. We apologize we didn't get to have Dan as long as we wanted, Dan Forrest. We do have a large number of questions. We'll have to sort through them in the Q&A section here. But we will reach out to them and see if he'll at least respond and answer. If we can bring him back with a couple of other members of the Council of States, we will do that in the future, because this is a chance for us to keep you all informed as to what's going on at the highest levels of the state of North Carolina. So I want to thank you for this. This has just been a 30-minute town hall, but it's been very educational for me personally. And I hope we'll continue to work with Dan and his team on the Republican side, specifically the Council of States, to make a difference for our state and help us open the state properly, safely, but get everyone back into their livelihood. So I want to thank you all for your attendance today and look forward to seeing you as attendees on Thursday of this week at 6 p.m. And we'll be sending, those are actually available on the Asian American Coalition Facebook page, and also the @Swain for Congress Facebook page on how you can sign up. So thank you very much and appreciate it. This ends our town hall with Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest. Thank you.